Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to the second episode of Ray on the Edge. I am so excited to be here again. Of course, still nervous, but that's okay. Pushing through the nerves, we're going to have a good time here. Today, or tonight, whenever you're listening, we are going to talk about a big question. A question that I've had most of my life. As far back as I can remember, I always wondered, who am I? Like, who am I? For many years, I was very confused about who I was. I lived most of my life based off of things that I had learned and things that I had been taught to believe and labels that were given to me. From the moment I was born, I am a girl and my name is Ray. And from as early on as I can remember, I was always I was always told who I was. Not in a negative way, in a very positive way. I have had amazing experiences with friends and family, and definitely not an identity crisis. But when I started to get older and really dive deep into who I was and why do I respond to things the way that I respond to them, why do I act the way that I act and have the feelings that I have, oh boy, it's been a journey. Yeah, so today that's what we're going to be talking about. Who am I? And maybe we'll get into the question of what is my purpose. I am definitely still trying to figure that one out. But let's just start with, who am I? I'll give you a little backstory. I am 35. I have two children. I've been married for 14 years. And I am just now beginning to understand my needs and who I am and what I want. And I've never felt more self-expression than this year. The backstory of Ray, me, is I'm trying to decide where to start, but basically I was born and raised by two wonderful people, wonderful mother and a wonderful father. And I came from a religious family. My father was a pastor, and I was raised to believe that there was one true and only one way to salvation and to, I guess, get to yourself, your whole self, the oneness with God. And as time went on, I began to deconstruct the way that I was taught. I started to deconstruct my belief system, and it was very scary, and it took a lot of bravery for me to dive into questions that I had really never asked before. I lived in a very black and white world, which was very safe and very supportive and loving, and all the questions that I had answers. But when I stepped away from that particular religion, I ended up in a very gray area where I could no longer depend on, well, this respected elder says that it's this answer, and believe it. I had to kind of believe it for myself or disbelieve it for myself. And that was a very long part of my journey. And then I grew up some more and had two wonderful children of my own. I became a parent, and then I really had to start deciding, like, what do I believe? Where do I stand on all of these things? And I felt like I couldn't just trust one source, so I went to all of the sources. I looked into all of the religions, and that was quite the journey as well. But such an amazing journey, nonetheless. So, I say all of that to say that currently I am still discovering who I am, but I definitely have a much better understanding of where I stand and what I believe. And I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more structured in my thoughts and where I stand in my conversations with friends and family. And for so many years, I was not confident. But with all of that said, I think that there comes a point in my life, your life, who's ever listening. Maybe I'm just talking to myself at this point, but I feel like there came, I'll speak for myself, a point in my life where I had to truly buckle down and change in many ways my outlook on life. I could no longer just sit idly by and allow life to make the decisions for me. And when I started stepping up for myself and making those decisions is really where my spiritual awakening journey began. I had gotten to the point where I was the most depressed I had ever been. In the beginning of my 30s, so around 30, 31, 32, 33 was very difficult years for me. And I got to the point where I couldn't really feel anything anymore. I was completely disassociated from my environment. I was disassociated from my body. And I remember exactly one night, at the end of the day, I had done the mom thing and the wife thing, and I had tucked my kids in bed, and I realized that I was just a shell. I didn't know what I needed or how I could help myself, what my likes were or my dislikes. And that is when, well, also I was pretty much crying out, tears running down my cheeks, no answers of why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. From the outside looking in, it was good. Yeah, I had the typical problems that humans have, but I didn't know myself. And from there is when I decided that I had to make a change. My soul was crying out. I see that now that I've come so far. About 3 years out from my beginning, I guess I can say, the beginning of Ray. But yeah, I got to the point where my soul was truly crying out, and I had to make a change. And the smallest change that I made was I thought maybe I'm depressed because I'm on social media. And so I just X'd social media out. And I ended up going an entire year without social media. And that was amazing. That helped a lot. But there was more. There was more that was crying out to be seen and heard. I see that now. But as I was going through it, I was just felt like deep depression. It felt like sorrow. And it's really nice to be able to look back with hindsight and kind of give myself a big hug and a little grace and a big, you did amazing. You survived some of the hardest days of your life, for sure. Um, But after I had gotten off social media, all of the little 15-minute increments of time that would be filled with Facebook or Instagram or the news, I now had time to simply put pen to paper and journal. And I was never a journaler. But I had time. I had time to do it, and so I did. And I began to journal my thoughts and my feelings. And as the weeks went by, I would look back at the months that had passed and to be able to read on paper how I was feeling and then actually be 3 months out from that feeling, I kind of started to notice little patterns. I noticed highs and lows, and I noticed the ups and the downs. And that's when I really started to get excited about, like, wow, now that I actually see how I'm feeling, maybe I can make some changes here. Maybe, maybe I should make some changes. I didn't know what to do. But I say now that I did the bravest thing I ever could, and I decided to simply sit with myself and acknowledge, wow, I'm having like a physical sensation to this, but I'm just going to take a breath. If you would like to take a breath with me, ground yourself. I just started to make little changes, and I decided to sit with myself long enough each day, which ended up only being 3 minutes. That's all I had on some days was 3 minutes. And I also, at that point, my children were both napping at the same time, and so sometimes I would get windows of time that were anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 hours. And boy, did I make some progress then. But I really did start with 3 minutes, just sitting. Sometimes it wasn't quiet. Sometimes my kids were screaming and banging and laughing and having a good time. And some days there were quiet moments. And that is truly where my journey began. When I sat with myself long enough to hear the inner dialogue, the repressed emotions, the encouragement, the amount of times that I would sit for 3 minutes and hear this voice that didn't feel like it was mine because it was speaking such kind words. And I was like, this is definitely not, this is not the Rachel who lives in this day, in this 24-hour period. And it would say things like, you've forgotten how much you're loved. You've forgotten that hydration is highly important. You have forgotten to take care of yourself. And it was the simplest, basic. You've forgotten to take a shower. You have forgotten self-care. Your soul is screaming for attention. It wants to be seen and heard. And I started getting these, I call them downloads and messages, and enlightened in these little 3-minute periods. I was so excited. It became this addiction where, what am I going to learn about myself today? And wow, what a journey. What a journey it has been to be able to, at this moment, myself and know who I am and what I want. And it's simple. It's not about what you want for the next 20 years or 10 years or 5 years or even 12 months. It is as simple as, when you open your eyes in the morning, what do I deserve and what do I want for this day? And it can be even simpler than a 24-hour period. If that's overwhelming, you can just sit and say, what do I want for myself in this 60 seconds that I have? What have I been neglecting? Yeah, so that is kind of a little backstory. I didn't think I would get so emotional there, but that's a little backstory of kind of who I was and where I was before my spiritual awakening. That's what I like to call it, because my life has changed so drastically from 2023, about 2023. I have just poured into myself in the smallest and biggest ways, but I built on to what I was giving myself and what I was doing for myself. And the biggest realization that I had was that I was being completely neglectful. I thought that if I was neutral, then the universe or God or life would bring to me what was needed. But truly, I have discovered that remaining neutral brought anything and everything and all things and many things that I did not want. I have truly learned that taking a stand for yourself is one of the biggest and greatest things you can do for yourself. If you're a mother, one of the greatest things you can do for your children. If you're a wife, one of the greatest things you can do for your marriage. And not necessarily in a controlling way, but in a way that you, goodness, it's hard to explain it, but in a way where you feel like you are ordained for the 24-hour period that you have been given. You feel like you are a queen and you are in charge. And it doesn't mean that you can't be vulnerable, because truly I have learned that you can well, I say you, but I should speak really for myself, that I can feel two things at once, two emotions. I can feel vulnerable and strong. I can feel successful and humble, disciplined and relaxed, honest and kind, likable, but still have boundaries. Oh boy, that should be a whole episode all on its own. The boundaries that I did not set for myself brought so many things. Um, I'm trying not to use a negative word here, but honestly, chaos. I've learned over the years that boundaries are one of the most beautiful things you can do for yourself and for the protection of your soul. Well, that was a lot. So I just would like to end with saying, I would like to end um, with an encouraging word. If you're struggling, if you're currently feeling like life is so heavy and you have no idea where the heaviness is coming, no matter where you're at in your life, take a moment to connect. Take a moment to connect to your heart space, because that is where the true you lives. You could possibly be on the edge of the greatest discovery of self. I know I have been. I am on the edge of the greatest discovery, the absolute greatest. If you'd like to take a deep breath with me, a cleansing breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let my words settle in your heart. If you feel like you've connected with them, let them settle. If you do not, then just let them pass. There's no right way or wrong way. Just imagine that there's a little you on the inside of your heart. And it could be the 5-year-old version of you. It could be the 16-year-old version of you. But there's a little you inside of your heart space. And they are holding on. They are holding on to hope, to just be seen and acknowledged. Whisper, well, I invite you to put your hand on over your heart and whisper, I see you, I love you, and you are not alone. Thank you for joining me today, guys, for the second episode of Ray on the Edge. I hope that you have a wonderful evening or day or morning or wherever you are in your life. I am sending beautiful, wonderful, amazing, graceful, strong vibes your way. I love you.